So I'm here with George Farmer, a
Hi,
man
Jeff.
that, hey, George, a man that needs no introduction in the
Infamous, you
aquarium
could
hobby
say.
and elsewhere, right? Uh, one of the most noteworthy things, because I'm sure many of the viewers and listeners will already be familiar with George and his body of work, but something that I still encounter all the time. Just yesterday, even someone came into the gallery and mentioned this, that their point of entry into the uh, aquarium hobby, and moreover aquascaping and keeping planted freshwater aquariums, was George Farmer and his tremendous influence, your YouTube channel, and just your many years of involvement and engagement at that level. And so, man, you've been just a huge, huge boost. And like I say, I think a very important and very effective point of entry to not just this word aquascaping. It's a useful word, but there's something more there too. I think it's gone beyond just when we say aquascaping and into the broader aquarium dimension. So anyway, just wanted to put that in the intro there, George. It's
Uh,
important work that you do.
I really appreciate that. And as someone that does enjoy being flattered, thank you.
You're very welcome, man. Very
Yeah,
welcome. So how
it
are
really
you,
is fun.
George?
I'm really good, actually. Yeah, I've had a busy week. I'm in Denmark, actually, working with a well-known aquarium and plant brands. And it's been a long day. I was awake at 5 a.m. and yeah, I've been I don't know if you know about Denmark, but because of how north it is, we have very, very
Okay.
short days here in the winter. And so I have literally seen no daylight today at all. So
Oh, wow.
it's really crazy for the circadian rhythms, as I'm sure you're aware. So
Right.
yeah, it's not good for my sleep, and I have trouble with insomnia anyway. So yeah, I'm a little bit tired,
It's
but I've had a nice meal, and a little bit of some supplements to keep me going. So it's all good.
There you go. There you go. So it's actually you're not getting a lot of sunlight is really what's going, that's
No, not
this time
not
of
not
year.
not not this week in Denmark, especially. It's overcast, rain, and then we have it doesn't. There's no sunrise until 8:45 in the morning, and then the sun's going down at sort of 3-4 p.m. And
Oh,
then
wow.
I'm indoors all day filming in a studio, so there's no natural light there. So yeah,
Right.
it's not really good for one's health per se. But
Understood.
it but I should be grateful to work with you know with what I'm passionate about. So swings and roundabouts, as we say in England.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And, that does introduce a area that I really wanted to deep dive into today, and something that I've seen as a growing trend or influence in your more recent content. And the way I describe it, or how I kind of frame it, is the aquarium as it relates to human well-being, because I think this is a most vital dimension of the potential or the possibility of an aquarium in a human space, in a human life, beyond how we might think or what we might call hobby. Um, Nothing wrong with the word or treating it as a hobby, but I think there's something more there. In fact, I know that there is, and I know many will know your story already of just, what really brought you deep into the hobby, into aquarium keeping. And it's one that I've seen as a very recurring theme too, and that is where people have come to it by way of some sort of trauma or some sort of stress event, something really profound that affected them at a deep level, whatever that life experience may have been, and the degree of relief or sort of lessening of those events that they found by engaging with aquariums is profound. And it's something that I've heard over and over again. And many people go on to even, move into aquarium related activities beyond their, leaving their day job or something like that, to just, they're so positively affected by it that they just want to be around it all the time. So I know you had a similar point of entry to it as well. Many will be familiar with the story, but maybe you could just recap that a little bit for us.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So I was in the military and the Royal Air Force, and as part of my career, I did a bomb disposal tour in Afghanistan, and I got blown up in a roadside bomb, and I was a hobbyist at the time, and the bomb itself was just like a metaphor for a reset button, and I realised I was on the wrong path with my current marriage, as my ex-wife, and on the wrong path with a career in the military. It wasn't in my mind what I was my calling, if you like, or wasn't fulfilling my potential as a human being, doing what I was doing, and no regrets actually, because it gave me a lot of life skills, the military, and my ex-wife gave me some experience, obviously, with being married, etc., and have a beautiful child, Florence, who's nearly 18. She's 18 in March, which is pretty hard to believe now. She's driving, got off to university soon. So yeah, that gave me the opportunity to hit the reset button and start a new life as an aquascaper. Effectively, that's the short story.
Sure. And I know, they're even pretty early on, just to give some sense of the history and how long you've been doing this. I mean, this was I wouldn't say pre-internet, but the internet was still fairly new, and we certainly there was no social media to speak of yet, at least in my earliest memories, of seeing your articles in the UK magazines and popping up on the various aquarium forums and that sort of thing. And so you also got pretty good at taking a photograph of an aquarium.
I did,
yeah. Back before, when it was still, it's still a
big DSLR camera, and you had to deal with high ISO. You were screwed. It was just so noisy. So actually, I learned how to use a camera through the aquarium hobby. I bought a DSLR specifically to take photos of an aquarium. So it was a really interesting path, and I've been a hobbyist for over 20 years now. Yeah, and a professional aquascaper for almost 10 years. Yeah, and so long time. But I was contributing. So practical fish keeping was a 2005, 2006. Started contributing to those guys. So yeah, that was like the original. I guess like the original influencer, you could say, because I would approach brands and say, I'm a regular contributor to this magazine. If you give me free plants and free products, then it will get a plug in the magazine. They wouldn't actually give me money, but they give me products, which is similar to sort of an Instagram influencer. Now I get free fish food or a free filter or whatever to show off in their Instagram feed. But I'd show it off in a magazine instead of an Instagram feed instead.
Yeah, that was how it was done at the time. That was really that was the way. No, you were definitely a pioneer then, and I think that was a awesome segue into getting into social media and having some credibility built in too, especially in an age, and I think it's, for the most part, it's a good thing, but in an age where people can just sort of show up with a few tanks that don't have algae in them, and become someone. Now, I don't know if they get to the influencer level right away, but definitely this term content creator is relatively easy to access now, whereas back then, to forge relationships with publications and write articles, and this wasn't footage you were capturing with a cell phone either. This was it was tricky to get
it was
images at a level that could be.
You were doing it before me, mate. You inspired me. I think you and Mike's book, The Inspired Aquarium. When was that released? That was early 2000s.
That was 2005.
Yeah, this is as I was coming into it, and you guys were like my North American kind of North Star, and I looked up to you. I looked at your content on, I think it was Aquatic Plant Central forums, those days. And you would have these, and I know you were a keen photographer. I mean, there was the Aquarium Photography Forum, wasn't there? Do you remember that?
Yep. Yeah, that was a good one. I was actually just thinking about that one.
I remember your really strong style as it is now, just a minimalist but beautiful Irigumi, black back. Yeah, just really, yeah. So yeah, I remember it well to this day, mate, and you were a huge inspiration. So it's really nice to be talking now, almost 18, 16 years later, whatever it is, Yeah, things have moved on and we've got a bit older now.
That's for sure, man. That's for sure. But I really appreciate that. And like you, I didn't know anything about photography until, I learned because I wanted to photograph aquariums, and I wanted to photograph them. I aspired to be at the level that Mr. Amano was, because that's, of course, the original inspiration. And, there wouldn't even be an ADG without him. But just seeing aquariums photographed in that way, I said, I must learn how to do this. One way or another, I've got to sort this out. And this was in the days too, if you had a 3.2 megapixel camera, that's a pretty sophisticated piece of tech at the time.
Yeah, it was.
And you're learning real quickly that, wait a minute, Mr. Amano must be shooting with something else, because
he had large format films made for him, didn't he?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was at next level, mate. Absolutely. And he always will be, won't he? No one's ever going to exceed his skill at photography. In my mind, I don't think it's possible, personally.
It's true. There was the one time I was in the Nature Aquarium Gallery, and he did a demonstration of how they photograph an aquascape there in the gallery, and it was a 180 centimeter. And it was an elaborate affair. There was no less than 10 people involved.
Yeah.
From, I guess with the large format cameras too, they have to change out, like you get one exposure and then they change out this kind of, I'd call it a cartridge or something. I don't know all the terminology, and then there's two or three guys behind the aquarium holding up a big diffusion screen, and then there's someone else running lights behind the diffusion screen to get that classic gradient effect that he would do with the kind of the blue into the white. And then you've got guys operating the fans or the hair dryers to get the ripples just right. And then somebody with a little feather duster, kind of just a little stick with like a feather duster, trying to get the fish in a certain way. And Mr. Amano, of course, sitting back in his director's chair, just calling out the plays the whole time, to get, because, with the large format, you can't sit there and just do a long burst or something. You've got one, which even speaks to, those perfectly captured moments even more. But anyway, just all fascinating stuff from the history.
It is fascinating. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you mentioned some of the effects right now, let's say, of the seasonal conditions there in Denmark, for example, sunlight, this kind of stuff, which points to a certain awareness that I think you've developed about just this well-being dimension. And so you have a more of a sensitivity to the fact that maybe the the circadian rhythms are a little off, this is going to disrupt the sleep, etc. And it just brings me to the inquiry of, how much of a role your aquarium keeping, plays in, let's say, when you return home and that kind of seeking that reset, and just kind of your thoughts on the aquarium's relationship to this dimension of well-being, that it's just so clearly a one of the key sort of things that it offers us.
Yeah, it's so multifaceted for me, but I think the main thing is enjoying the process, but enjoying just connecting with something in the moment, in the present moment. So whether you're planning an aquarium, building an aquarium, maintaining an aquarium, or consuming an aquarium, sitting in front of it, even photographing an aquarium or videoing an aquarium, while I'm doing all these activities, I'm completely in the present moment, and I'm not thinking about the past, the future. I'm just in the zone, in the flow state, and I can get in that state very, very quickly and relatively easily now. And I really believe that I've kind of made it a part of my daily meditation practice, spiritual practice that I'm building on every day by day. And the more I work with these living entities that are in our care, and the more I work with plants in particular, and fish and invertebrates and water in general, and natural materials, the more I realize that we're all part of the same thing. We're all just one. And that's the magic for me. And if I'm ever in I still suffer from various mental health issues from I won't list them all. But what I will say is just the act of feeding the fish, or cleaning the glass, or trimming a leaf, it can lift you out of that dark place if you're in a dark place, or if your immune is slightly low, because action drives action, and I used to procrastinate so much and just used to make excuses not to do things, and used to self-soothe with various substances or alcohol, but actually it's keeping an aquarium and keeping it healthy and looking after this miniature universe. These living things are completely dependent on us, you as the aquascaper, as the aquarium keeper, and we have a responsibility to give them what they need to their welfare should be paramount. And by doing that, you're serving something bigger than yourself, and there's a real power, there's a real sense of ego death almost, because you're not just serving your own selfish kind of ego. I used to be obsessed with growing on YouTube, growing on Instagram, having just like looking through the comments and only seeing negative comments and just all this BS. And you take a step back and you realize, why are you actually doing what you're doing? It's not to get the numbers. It's actually to live a good life. And you can, I believe, we as an aquarium keeper, as an aquascaper, can use that process to live a good life. And there's so many, we can go over many tangents, about aquascaping in particular. But yeah, aquascaping has taught me how to live a good life in essence, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. I like that a lot. I've always said it's a magical combination of things. I mean, you've got water. I mean, this body is over 72% water.
Yeah.
So I mean, clearly there's just such a resonance there. Then you have life. You have these little life forms in there that clearly have their own little isolation of consciousness as well. I mean, clearly they're alive. And when you can bring in, as aquascaping generally seeks to do, when you can bring in the dimension of design or composition, art, now we're talking art or expression or creativity. Wow, what a powerful combination of variables to be so effective at calming us down, if nothing else.
Yes,
And I'm fascinated by the part, and I sense that you've recently, or in the past few years, maybe taken more of a exploration into this realm. But the part where the aquarium is clearly, there's clearly a communication link, is just one way to put it, to something deeper within us, because there's so many reports, so many reports from aquarium keepers of all kinds of this calming down. And for a lot of years, actually, there's been actual scientific research that proves that when we observe the aquarium, the fishes in the water, I think if you bring in composition, you only deepen the effect, right? But that this is actually physically calming down the body. You know, the heart rate's coming down, the blood pressure's coming down, even brainwave states are shifting towards the meditative end of the spectrum. I don't know if you follow Andrew Huberman, but he's yeah. So Huberman keeps aquariums.
He does. I reached out to him recently. I don't know if you have.
Oh, awesome! Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I haven't got a reply, but
sure.
Yeah, I heard on a few podcasts he's mentioned aquariums a few times.
Yeah, Discus even, I think, too.
Yeah.
Which is just really cool. But here's a guy who clearly has a handle on the science. This is something beyond just our guess or our perception that it's calming us down. I mean, there's objective, empirical evidence that is happening. And the point I would be trying to make by that is to say first to say, wow. And secondly, to note that when you observe the aquarium, when you interact with it, all the things that you just listed that have this soothing effect, that's not a doing. In other words, you're not saying to yourself, the self-talk in the head is not saying, I'm looking at an aquarium now, heart rate, please slow down.
No.
I'm looking at an aquarium now, please body feel more relaxed. It just happens. And it's one of those things. I mean, it gets into the realm of just placing one's attention on something, as you said, that's in the now, in the present moment. But beyond that, there's clearly a communication link. And the aquarium is not the only thing that does this. I mean, there's many things in the world, but an aquarium does have this, as part of its multifaceted contribution to well-being. It has this capacity to communicate with I call it kind of the inner wisdom of the body itself. That's something beyond mind. This is beyond thought and thinking and self-talk in the head. And so I love when you pointed to sort of this ego death situation, because man, there's not a second way to put it. That's exactly what's going on. And when you take in that scene, you're meditating, and you're meditating without any sort of great effort to do so. And I just think
it's a very Zen style of meditation. It's the art of nothing almost. And you're right. It's all about quieting the mind. And I don't know how it works. I don't know the science. I'd love to hear Andrew Huberman do a whole podcast on it. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? He did a
It's beyond
podcast with Sam
science.
Harris. Yeah, he did a podcast with Sam Harris recently. Did you hear that one?
Oh, I have not, because I
No,
love
yes,
Sam Harris too. Big
yeah, it's an
Sam
amazing
Harris
comment.
fan.
Yeah. I think it was the first one this year that they did there. It was like a 3 or 4 hour. It was amazing. And it's the
I
only
gotta
one I've
catch
listened to
up.
in one sitting. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
gotta catch up.
So, yeah, the I don't know what it is, and I can't intellectually explain it, but there's the beauty. You don't need to intellectually explain it. I don't think it maybe needs to be, because you can just feel it. And if you just let yourself go, and I think this, as someone who's kind of used to be a bit of a perfectionist, always analysing the aquarium and go, what do I need to do next in order to make it look better? You know, where's the algae? You know, where's the unhealthy leaf? You know, to ignore that and just be present with it and just accept it for how it is. Maybe you spend a couple of minutes, you know, doing a health check, but then, you know, just sit back and, you know, I have a chair, you know, special stool next to my aquarium now, and then sometimes my dog will sit on my lap, and then I'll just sit there. Sometimes, because of my insomnia, it might be a bit kind of not completely animal welfare. 3 in the morning, I'll put the lights on in the aquarium, I'll get my dog, and I'll sit there and just, you know, zone out, and it's just magical. And I can get into that state of arrival straight, you know what I mean by arriving straight away. You're just there, connected, you know, one to one, the oneness. You can feel it. I get the shivers right now thinking about it, and it's just magical. Yeah, and you can feel the heart rate when you become more kind of in tune with your own body and mind connection. You can literally feel yourself just, you know, relaxing, and then I'll put Betty to bed, and I'll turn the aquarium lights off, and I'll go back up to my bedroom, and then I'll go to sleep.
Yeah. No, it's great. I just think it's an important thing that's often, it does get overlooked. I'm not totally sure why. I mean, I have sort of some theories, but I don't feel like they're very good ones. Just as far as like, of all the possible things, and as important as that one seems to be to so many people, how it's sort of been kind of overlooked. Maybe it's because there's not a lot that one can say about it, and it's not the flashiest content either. Maybe that's why it seems like it's in the background. I mean, even I feel like the aquarium marketing, the aquarium industry has never really put a hard focus on that aspect of it. Again, probably because they miss the connection, possibly. Not all of them, but many miss the connection between the possibility of better marketing of their products through leading with this important aspect of the aquarium, as it could be a benefit to your health or your well-being, as opposed to, you know, how bright a light gets or how much water a pump moves around, this kind of thing. You know, it's sort of like, that's all sort of secondary to this really important thing that we all seem to be craving these days too. I mean, everybody, I think, is seeking greater peace of mind, greater inner peace by any means necessary, you know.
Absolutely.
But and so it's why it's a point that I love to discuss and bring up, especially when I've got an influencer on the line to maybe start a shift, and in which you're doing already. I'm seeing you infuse your content with this dimension, and I just think it's really cool.
Thank you. I don't know if you're aware. Do you follow Green Aqua, the YouTube channel? Green Aqua.
Yes, very yes, big time.
I did a video with them recently. It's just been published today. I'm not trying to plug. Well, I am plugging right now.
Oh no, plug it. Man.
We did a video, and it's the philosophy of aquascaping.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about this and the mental health benefits and how you can use, you can use aquascaping as a source of meditation, flow state. And yeah, it was great. It was me and Balash, and we just set up a, 60p style aquarium.
Awesome.
And rather than talking about how to do it, we were talking about why we're doing it. And that was the
Love
whole
it.
theme, is why. And start with why, not how. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about the lights. We didn't talk about the filter. We didn't talk about the aquarium. You know, we just talked about why we're doing it. Why is it important, and how we can. The aim for me was to get the viewers just to perceive their aquarium in a different way, not just an object in their room to look at and enjoy and show off to their friends and feed the fish and aren't they pretty, but actually, connect with it properly, and then really use that power of now, to quote Eckhart Tolle's book, just stay in the moment. Because, we're in today's age, we're just bombarded. I have to have all my notifications turned off on my phone because it's just, literally thousands a day. And, I've deleted my Instagram account for that reason, because it was just taking so much energy away from me. And,
A bold
it's
move.
just, yeah, but it's what's more important, right? Your happiness, or having 100,000 followers, and if they like my content, then they can get it from other means, and other means in terms of putting more effort and energy into creating more meaningful, long form content that I'm taking a lot more care and attention over, and actually using that mindfulness aspect during the creation process of creating the content, and then combining this, last couple of videos I've done, I've actually talked about mindfulness, overlaying, nice cinematic B-roll, and I think the two match perfectly. And I'm sure you guys are going that way as well in some respects.
Yeah. No, and that's admirable, George. It's funny to say because it's just an app on your phone, but I can say it takes some courage to hit that delete button on an account on Instagram, because there's such a connection to one, just kind of the natural self-seeking that I think we all sort of do with social media. And I think few can truly claim to be above that. I mean, some people certainly are, but I think most of us, we all want more likes and we want more eyes on our stuff. And at some point, there's, these are generalizations, but I mean, I think and then for yourself, it was part of a broader career path, or part of your business model even. And I think there's something to take a look at there. I mean, something that really hits me pretty directly in terms of the realization that it's not the necessary force or the necessary thing that we come to think that it is, and we hear deleted for someone who's a content creator. That's sort of whatever term you want to put on it. That's what they do. That's their full-time job. I mean, that's what they don't have a day job and then they make content on their stuff at home in the evening or whatever. The realization that a platform like an Instagram was having a more detrimental effect, and maybe even affecting your ability to deliver an authentic message. I think, was it something where it got maybe there was too much baggage there? Is it sort of a baggage situation where it's easier just to walk away?
It's very complex. It's very, very multifaceted, very complex. But in essence, it was very distracting. And I mean, like, distracting to the point of where I couldn't enjoy taking my dogs for a walk without thinking, oh, that looks brilliant. I need to take a photo of that and share it, as a story on Instagram, because it's natural and, the leaves look beautiful. And I'm using my creative mind, and I can make an argument for saying, I'm being an artist and I'm sharing my love of nature, but I'm not being present in the moment, Jeff. and I'm not enjoying that one-to-one time with my dogs, and my family, and I'm just offloading my sense of self, my sense of fulfillment. I'm outsourcing it to other external sources, and I should be getting it from myself, inward, not outward. And Instagram is just the perfect tool to distract me from being in the present moment. And there was lots of other stuff, there's some toxic people on there, which are in essence bullies, and I just couldn't be bothered to deal with them anymore. So I was just like, I don't need it. I've got YouTube. I've got a book. I write for a magazine. I'm writing another book. I'm working with some great brands. I know some great people. I've got a beautiful family, a beautiful home. I don't need Instagram. And actually, I tell you what, mate, it's the best thing I've ever done, deleting it. It's just given me so much more focus. 2023 is a year of staying in my lane, keeping my house in order, and focus on the unconditional love for my family and myself. And Instagram was just a massive toxic dagger in the heart of all that. So taking that dagger out, and it's healed. So cheerio, Instagram.
Wow, man. Wow. I was getting chill bumps as you were saying that.
Yeah.
Because it's I've struggled. No, go ahead.
It's a great platform, right? I've had some great friends on, and a great community, some real positive vibes, and there's still some brilliant people on there, great positive vibes, and nothing against these people, but it's just not for me.
Yeah, for you, and that's the thing. And
yeah, exactly.
It resonates with me too, because we sort of have a history of very inconsistent posting, and I've never really embraced it at the full level of trying to get more followers and all this sort of thing. But I can't claim, in all honesty, from the egoic perspective, I cannot claim to have, let's say, to resist posting for any sort of good reason. In other words, I didn't, or I should say that not posting gave me feelings of guilt and sort of a fear of missing out, that feeling always lingering in the background and sometimes I wouldn't have posted for weeks or months even. And I think every single day it became something that even though I had sort of broken the habit of posting, it was still bothering me that I wasn't. And I tried to just take a long look at that, and I tell you, it ends up more or less the same place every time for me, and I feel like it's such a blessing and something I'm so grateful to have had the experience. But I realize that this is just mind. This is ego 101. What is it other than thought and thinking and the self-talk in the head? There's no actual... I would have to manufacture this guilt or this feeling of missing out, or somehow selling myself short by not posting on Instagram or Facebook or whatever the case is. And it's fine and I think a lot of people really, they enjoy it, or it's an outlet for them in some kind of way. And you can sort of tell those types too from the nature of their content a lot of times, because it just seems to be things they just posted or they posted it naturally, or it was just, it doesn't come off with any sort of attempt to do or be anything, and you can sort of take it or leave it. But once you're involved at the level of branding or marketing, or it's such a different game. And I'm sure you've seen these content creator, I've seen it with YouTubers even as well, where they reach a point where they'll do the big video where they come out and say, I've got to step away for a while. And they're usually citing some sort of mental health challenge that they're facing as a result of the pressure for content creation.
Absolutely. And it's self-imposed usually. In
Yeah,
fact, probably 99% of the time. And it's just, like you say, it's the self-talk. And yeah, burnout's a real thing. I was almost there at the end of last year. I said before we started recording, I think 5 or 6 trips to North America. That going back to the wellness thing, that amount of time in an aircraft, the time zone shift, the circadian rhythm shifts, it's really hard to eat well. And I'm really a big fan of good nutrition. It's really hard to eat well in North America. No disrespect. But if you're living in an exhibition center, there's no like Whole Foods down the road. There's, you've got everything's, anyway, no disrespect to you, to the.
No, you're right. Trust
guys,
me.
but
trust
really
me.
hard. It's really, really hard. And I'm not getting, I'm mid-40s, and I'm not, I have to look after myself. And if I want to live a good life, which I'm trying to do. So, for that reason, no more travel to North America this year, more than likely. So it goes in my mission of staying in my lane, keeping my house in order.
Sure.
Focusing on UK stuff, European stuff. I mean, it's literally an hour flight to London and then an hour in the car home. So I can door to door 3 hours from where I am now to home, and 1 hour shift in the time zone. So it's fairly straightforward. But North America, mate, it's just, and those exhibition centres, oh my goodness, no natural light, all the fluorescent lights in the world, all the LEDs, all the noise. Everyone wants your attention. Everyone wants a selfie. Everyone's looking at it, and it's great. Don't get me wrong. What a great, very privileged position to be in, that people want to watch me work and I love spreading the word of aquascaping, of course. But it does take so much energy, and I experienced that last year. Absolutely.
Yeah, the energetic part of it is definitely a challenge. And I like that you point to the possibility of a more authentic message, or you're able to deliver your message, your content, your way, perhaps more authentically without as many distractions, or again, without sort of this relentless demand that Instagram would place on your time, and feeling like everything you were doing needed to sort of be captured. And it gives you it's in how it's potentially giving you a greater focus on exactly what you want to do, what you want to be, the story you want to tell, and which I relate to as well, just from I dared to put my time and effort and focus into creating an in-person experience in the gallery, in the ADG gallery, in what we call the Aquarium Design Store, and feel, again, I just relate to what you're saying so much, in that, and it's helpful to hear somebody that was in a position like yourself, that was able to sort of really make that bold step of saying, you know what, I recognize this as something that's not a positive force for me anymore, and sort of stepping away from that. And I don't know, it feels good. I think I think you are offering a potential sigh of relief for a lot of people out there to kind of go, okay, maybe I don't need to. Maybe I can take the pressure off a little bit. And if you enjoy it, that's great. But that it's not something one need feel, is the most important thing. But I love the part where you're able to get more of a focus, or the authenticity of your message is you're able to deliver that in a more concise
to summarize
way.
To summarize it, you could just say quality over quantity. And rather than spreading that content thin and wide, you're actually taking more time and energy and putting it into one smaller but more meaningful project. So now I'll spend 2 or 3 days on one video rather than recording a video every day with my mobile phone. So now I'll get out my big camera, I'll get out my microphone, I'll do a shot list, I'll do a voiceover, I'll think about the story, and I'll take high quality photos while I'm doing it. And these are all, I started to lose my creative edge, I think, in terms of getting those images, and that's where I cut my teeth in the hobby. Going back to the DSLR days, I love holding a camera and looking through the viewfinder. I don't like mirrorless cameras. I love getting that up to my eye, looking through it. I'm a military background, so it's almost like being a sniper, right? And you got it up in there, you're in the zone, there's no light anywhere, it's just you, the viewfinder, and what you're looking at. And there's a metaphor. It's just like in the moment, you're zoned in, you got your target, that fish is swimming, you're tracking it, and one shot, one kill. Not like with your phone, and now you've got like live, and it's taking like 100 frames in a second, and you can pick which one, and you're like, brilliant, but there's no real skill or creative endeavor there anymore. And it's a tool, and it's great if you want to off the cuff just shoot something really quick, share it. That's fine. But for me, I was losing the spirit of what I was doing, and going back to sort of Amano, and his large format cameras. I'm not, I was nowhere near that level, but kind of putting that same amount of energy and effort into creating the best piece of art, that I could, and that's where I get my real dopamine now. I don't get it from getting 1,000 likes on a photo that I take with my phone. I'm ranting, but there we go.
No, it's true. And when you point to Amano and the use of a large format film camera, too, it's a great analogy because and one, he never abandoned that. I mean, right up to the end, that's how he was photographing everything, his nature stuff and everything. But it's definitely something where, again, it demands a certain engagement, a certain presence that is it's just different when you're doing it with your phone. That's for sure. And that's just a part of it that I think in many ways this approach that you're describing, it's kind of just now occurring to me like this, but that it's actually more appropriate to aquariums or aquarium content, or especially aquascaping, where so much of the process of the sequence is that really being present and really taking the time. And there is a definite patience component that is just an inextricable part of doing it. And yet the sort of pressure or the rush or the endless content capture of it is it's just strangely at odds. Like, it seems the way you're talking about presenting your content seems way more aligned with the way that we do aquascaping or even just aquariums in general. So it's a funny parallel that I see. It's like, no, it's part of why these, and they're fun. It's for fun, but the contests that they'll have at the Aquashellas and the expositions and the where you have a time element on aquascaping has always seemed very strange to me. Okay, you've got 1 hour or 30 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that this is somehow supposed to be a test of your skill. And I've done my share of these things myself, and I'm kind of going, man, it just doesn't. It's so funny that we have to do that to everything these days, I guess, because it's just so at odds with the actual skill of it, as you're discovering. I think you're really tapping into this in a multifaceted way, and I think you're seeing even your own content creation. I love that you're choosing this path again. It's just more aligned with the principles of aquariums in the first place, and that hits. Let me tell you, that hits, because I'm probably one to have made a habit of getting distracted too easily, or changing things too quickly because they weren't going a certain kind of way, or again, that pursuit of perfection, or all that kind of stuff. I mean, just since I've done this podcast, I've already changed my aquarium behind me 3 times. There's currently just a few tetras in it because I'm changing the fish again. I tried discus again. I was like, what? I don't really enjoy discus that much, because
I don't. I've tried them twice now, and they're just such hard work. And this, is it the size, the swimming behavior for you, or is it just the high maintenance, the high temperature, and what is it?
None of that. It's a simple thing that's a recurring theme, and that is when they don't eat. And this, I just go through this all the time in planted tanks, in all kinds of in a lot of situations. And this game of getting them to eat, for me, I know there's so many people going to hear that and go, I never had a problem getting to eat. What are you talking about? But that for me to have, and these, my last group I had in here, they were spawning. There was 2 pairs, and that's maybe that's part of the problem, is the spawning activity is just disrupting the group dynamic too much. But these fish looked impeccable. They were in perfect health. All the criteria were met, and they were very interested in food. When I went to feed them, if I opened the cabinet door to get out the food, all those cues, they're responding. They're coming out. They're coming up. And every food that I gave them, tried and true classic discus foods, they're putting it in their mouth and spitting it out. And they're not even going down and cleaning it up later. 5 hours later, there's swollen pellets down on the bottom of the tank, and I'm just kind of going, I'm not doing this again. I just don't. That part is so. That is just not that. There's no challenge there anymore for me. I just found it really unpleasant.
It's sad, isn't it? Because they're in our care. These are living entities. If they're not eating, then we're not doing our job. And it's not fair on the fish. So leave them for someone else, hopefully, to care for them.
Sometimes I'm going to go, there's not even a good reason why the fish looks well and healthy. They respond. They not want the food. I don't know. And then if you get the meeting, a lot of times you see this thing where there's a group dynamic. All discus groups in aquariums reach this point. Unless you're at scale, at really big aquariums with big groups, I see a lot less of this. But generally, there's a natural hierarchy in there, and there's always the last guy in line who will even eat but still become dark and start to lose weight and just not be as nice as there's just a bunch of things going on there where I start to go, not so sure it's not a situation with a predictable outcome, I guess. And I admire those that can endure the challenges and create those balances. I guarantee you, anybody trying to do it more than once is going to encounter these kinds of problems. And it's a shame. I love the fish, and I know it's not, and I know this isn't everybody's experience, but probably because I've done it a lot of times. I think if you've had 2 or 3 discus aquariums and you more or less things went okay, which happens also. That's happened for me also. But once you've done a certain amount of times, you see these recurring patterns where, and no one can give you an answer. Heiko Blair himself is not able to give me a coherent answer as to, why this behavior is happening. Anyway.
Not saying anything about Heiko.
Right. It's a bit of a tangent, but it's
So what are you keeping? What are you keeping in there now then? Just tetras?
There's a few tetras. Actually, today the fish the feature fish are arriving today, this afternoon.
Oh, nice.
And it is tiger sebrums. So they get the red. The sometimes there's a couple of different types in that same there's actually quite a few different severums out there, beyond just the reds and the greens. These get that really dark orange kind of stripe, sometimes called
Nice.
the orange shoulder or red shoulder.
Mhm.
Gorgeous fish with, to me, a lot of the depth and color and interest of wild discus even. I mean, they're
Yeah, agreed.
obviously a
Yeah, yeah,
completely different fish, but, I wanted something
yeah.
kind of large and with kind of that broad-sided body, but a fish that they will always eat whatever you give them very happily. They're easy to grow, kind of underrated for all of the sort of wow factor and demand for discus. Man, there's some of the other, larger, kind of more round shaped South American cichlids that are just stunning animals. I mean, really
And
beautiful.
they're very intelligent as well. I love that interaction you can have with cichlids. I mean, I have Chindongo salusi, the classic, the yellow and blue male and females. I have
Yeah,
a beautiful collection now in my 300 litre was 90 gallon, I guess.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and they're intelligent, and they know it's me. When anyone else that comes to the tank, they're not interested. I come to the tank and they go crazy for me, and I follow them around, and they're breeding, and it's a different part. It's different to aquascaping, of course. And it's almost like pet keeping, and we're talking about connecting with the animal of more of a one-to-one than the kind of Zen aquascaping mode that we have as well. But it's all about connecting, isn't it? It's all about connections, and yeah, fish. I've developed such a passion for the fish. I work closely with my friend Ty Streetman, and he's working on this amazing book project. And it's just really changed my mindset of actually, I used to just think about the escape first and then the fish shoot the escape, but now it's the other way around. It's like, think of the fish and then create the escape around the fish. And what a beautiful thing, because these are living things and they have a right to be looked after. They're not just a floating ornament, and
it's true.
they're actually living entities, and I'm not going to go down the vegan route or anything, but these are things that we should be looking after to the best of our ability, in my opinion. And I'm guilty of not doing that in the past, pumping up that CO2 until they're nearly like gasping and then just tweaking it down a little bit, none of that anymore. It's like the fish come first. Yeah.
And that's sort of I think a pretty common arc that one would take if their first aquarium experiences were just based on high level aquascaping, where again it is a different mindset. And I mean, I've always had a passion for all kinds of aquariums and always done all kinds of aquariums, and I've made my share of mistakes, and I too have been very guilty of treating it too much as design or ornamentation or that sort of thing. It's something I've loved about having this podcast, and all honesty, it's just on a real regular basis getting to have in-depth conversations with other people that keep aquariums. It's very naturally kind of deepened my respect or my just a certain gratitude for the fact that I'm keeping any aquarium at all in the first place. And it's kind of softened the edges for me as far as the demands on, just this sort of pure design pursuit. And I do still sometimes do that sort of thing, but I'm more mindful of the decisions I make about what fish I'm going to use, or, I do have some theories about totally domesticated fish. It's not a color form or anything that is from the wild. They're as far removed from the wild as your dog is from a wolf.
A wolf.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so you wouldn't, there's no particular demand to build a natural habitat for a wolf for your dog in your backyard. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no particular demand there, and your dog is perfectly happy to live off of your charity and eat the food you provide for it, sleep on the couch, the bed, with the soft places or whatever, and really doesn't want to be out in the cold and out in the rain and out in these other things. It's a domesticated animal. And so for me, it's been developing a little more of a balance. And it makes me curious about your work with Ty, because I know he comes from the biotope realm of things,
He does.
which,
Yeah,
yeah,
he does. Well, we're combining the two, you got high-end aquascaping and influences of biotopes. They're not like super realistic biotope. We can use hard tap water.
it's a
We can
vibe.
use, yeah, exactly. And it's just telling stories to hopefully get the readers to connect with a little bit more about everyday decisions. So for instance, let's think of an example. Cherry barbs, the natural habitats where cherry barbs come from is completely destroyed pretty much, and luckily they're captive bred now here, Sumatra. And so if you kept, a lot of people keep cherry barbs. I put some in an aquarium today, in fact, coincidentally. And if you really care about, you're interested in your cherry barbs, so you might read the book and go, that's where the cherry barbs come from. And their habitat's now decimated because of palm oil production. Maybe I don't want to buy palm oil so much anymore because of the devastating impact this is having on the environment. So, it might be a bit far-fetched to think that people might stop buying palm oil because of cherry barbs, but you see the connection that
For sure.
people only start to care about something if there's a connection there, and we can hopefully enable some of those connections by telling stories about the fish, where they come from, and setting up these aesthetically beautiful aquariums, but they're still fulfilling the fish's needs. And they're actually just for instance, we're using illuminated backgrounds, you know what I mean? But we can have different color foils on to create these really cool different ambience. And, we're not necessarily using the leaf litter from the tree that lives in that, indigenous to that river but we can use something similar, and we're just creating these vibes. And I just think it's just a really fascinating kind of way to take my hobby and just to connect people, and stop kind of this consumer-based aquarium keeping where everything's like plastic and fluorescent gravel and, the typical entry into the hobby.
Yeah.
I'd really like hobbyists to pick up, my book on aquascaping or Ty's book on, aquatic habitats, and they can do things hopefully in a bit more mindful way. And we're going back to, wellness and just connecting people to something a bit deeper than just something that's pretty to look at.
Yeah. Well, George, I just want to state again that there's a profound relevance, in my view anyway, to the work that you're doing now, to the message that you're bringing. I love the melding of kind of what you're doing with Ty. So we're not trying to do hard biotope, but we're giving a nod to the design, to the composition dimension, and it's more of a nod to these natural environments for the fish. But again, we're not, like you say, we're not trying to use the exact leaf that fell from the tree where the fish came from. I think that could actually represent a new category even. I mean, if something we could kind of build on anyway, in terms of just a new way to approach things. I say category because I do find that helps build momentum around a concept. We don't have to define everything. It can just be the work that you're doing, but to point people to it in terms of a specific endeavor, I think is really cool. The cool new direction that I love seeing you go in. And so, is there anything else, George, that you could share with us about what's coming up for you for the year here, or?
I just carry on creating hopefully inspirational, educational content that hopefully entertains as well a little bit. Just stuff that people connect with, making people feel a bit better. You know, if they watch one of my videos, hopefully by the end of it, they might feel a bit more relaxed. They might have connected with their own aquarium a bit more in a different way. And just have fun as well. You know, we've gone quite deep on stuff, but don't forget it's a fun hobby. You know, there's some brilliant people out there to work with. It's so easy now. You know, the equipment out there's, you know, compared to when we started, you know, T8 fluorescent tubes and DIY CO2, you know, to create a beautiful aquascape now is relatively easy. The knowledge is accessible in a few seconds. The equipment's available. I saw how much hardscape you guys got recently in a big container. Wow. Are you still sorting through that right now, I guess?
More or less. I've just redone like 7 new layouts in the gallery just because there was so much stuff that I was super inspired. And so
but
the
just,
only
just to say, oh, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that the only other thing that I would submit to you humbly to consider infusing into the content, and you do this, I think, naturally already, but and that would be, and this is based on feedback, by the way, of a lot of people that come into the shop and the feedback that I get from them, and that is infusing the content with a clearer sense of a process or sequence that, even if it's repetitious, kind of creates the formulas or the recipes of the different projects or different aquariums that you're doing. And even if you're deliberately pointing to kind of the recurring themes in there, the recurring processes, because I do every day, literally every day, somebody comes in that has gotten into this by way of the internet, and usually more over YouTube once they're getting more serious about it. And they're still really missing these essential sequences. I'm not entirely sure how, but it is something that needs work out there. And you're such an important and vital guy and well-known guy out there. And, you know, your content is going to come up for people when they're searching for this stuff. Your stuff's, YouTube is going to serve your videos at some point, sooner or later, when someone is wanting to get into this. And it's the number one thing that I see kind of missing out there. And it's just a clearer sense of sequence, or like a recipe.
Yeah, step by step, how to create these things.
Yeah, maybe even if it's
that's good.
If there's a downloadable PDF in the description or something that kind of has a breakdown, anything that gives people a clear, because I still get the people all the time, George, they're trying to do the HC carpet in the 5-gallon nano with no CO2, and it's not going well. And they have watched so many videos, and it's not just a naturally occurring thing to them, that they may be missing essential ingredients, or it'd be like trying to guess how to make a certain dish as opposed to having a recipe.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I don't know, just my 2 cents on, from a super influential content creator, what people would, I'm sure, benefit immensely from. But
I appreciate that feedback, mate. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, George, it's been a fascinating and awesome and lovely conversation. I truly
thanks, man. It's
enjoyed
really good to see you, and might see you in the flesh 2024. But I'm sure I'll see you online. And take care, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.